Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Getting a slightly late start today. It is 5:40. This is a regular meeting of the Winter Hill Civic Advisory Committee. Just want to do a quick attendance check and mic check on all of the committee members. So I'll just run down this list. Councillor Wilson?
Present, can you hear me?
And we can hear you, perfect. Councillor Klingon?
Present.
Excellent. Matt?
Present.
Will?
Hello.
Excellent. And Edith?
Hey, everyone.
Good. So we have a quorum of 5 folks. And gonna get started. So as we're getting going today, for those in the audience, our agenda for today is pretty simple. So I lost everyone. There you all are. So the first thing on our agenda today was to look at the meeting summary from the last meeting, and my apologies, it is not quite complete on our end. So we will make sure that that gets to you all as quickly as possible so everyone has it as part of the records, but it can stay in draft form at this point. So my apologies that we don't have that for you today. The second thing on our agenda is public comment period. So I do want to double check with the members of the audience if there's anyone who would like to speak at the start of the meeting before we get going. And I'm just taking a look through the list, and I think most of the folks who are on are actually part of the Mark development team who are here to answer questions if you all have them as we get into the draft letter. So seeing none, that takes us to the next item. And I don't have a presentation for today because I think the best way to do this is probably for us to look at a live copy of the letter altogether. But the main item on our agenda for today is to look at the draft letter to the SRA and ZBA. Can you all still hear me? Excellent. Okay, wasn't sure if my headphones did something weird there for a moment. So I'm going to pull up a copy of the draft letter as we started with. I want to see if there are changes from members here. We did also get an email in from Breck with a recommended change that I will read into the record as well. One moment. All right. So let's see. Can you all see my screen yet? Yes, excellent. Okay. I'm going to just try and move you to the other screen. So to start things off, you all might see yourselves. And here we go. First question I have is this large enough for everyone to read? And I'm assuming probably not. Is that okay? Okay, excellent. Seeing lots of thumbs up. So I wanted to see if, for folks who are here on the call, are there things that we need to change? I will note one that Will you sent in by email, and that is that our years are wrong.
All the years.
So why don't we start there? Any other comments from those who are here today as a starting point? Well, I think you're muted.
Yep, I was just talking to myself, trying to rearrange my screen.
Anyone else here, Will?
Can you hear me now? Yes, it sounds like it. Okay. I was just mostly talking to
So
myself,
no.
just trying to.
So
Can
sorry about
anybody
that
hear
one.
I can hear you, Will.
Yeah, I can hear Will.
Can? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Rachel, you're not able to hear us? Rachel?
Yeah, I think it's Rachel's sound.
I think I have lost audio. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I hear you now.
That's very weird. All right. Thank you. Go
Yeah.
to webinar.
Can you hear now?
Hey, success. I'm so sorry. So Will, I missed everything you said.
No worries. I was mainly pointing out, so there's a couple places where it should say 2022, and then I believe just one place where a date should read 2021, where it says October 2020 on page 2.
Thank you. Oh, yes.
Yep. So I think that's all the dates. Yes, there was that space. Substantively, I guess I would start out by saying I think overall I felt that it did capture the spirit of pretty much everything we have talked about. I think that the two things that stood out to me just in reading it overall are one, I do see in the additional recommendations, there was mention of meeting the climate and sustainability goals. I wondered how other members felt about sort of the placement or level of emphasis that is put on there. And I asked because that was a significant point of discussion in the public meeting in particular, with a lot of community feedback. So I just wonder about the level of emphasis and if it merits more, or if it's sufficient just with the point number 5 there. And then separately, I guess I'm wondering if there is place in this letter for any discussion of accountability towards these goals, because I think what we're saying here is we think that the plan as it's been presented so far largely meets the development goals set forth, but there's nothing that really gives it any teeth, I guess I would point out. And I wonder if there's anything that would be sort of within our purview to put forth in that, or if that's something that would be covered elsewhere in this process. Like, what happens if everything is built and it doesn't actually meet these?
A lot of that I think is going to come out of the ZBA
Okay.
approval around all the details. I think that's one of the pieces that why we wanted to make sure we included this list of additional comments, so that the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals is the ZBA, and they're the ones who will make the final decisions around governing this project. And so wanted to make sure we capture all of the details of the conversation had so far, so that they can use that as they consider granting the permit or not, and with conditions or not. I did want to, on that one, would it be helpful if it's like to make that, so you're saying maybe change this a little bit so it sounds it's clearer that this came up frequently in that conversation with the community? I think another thing that was pointed out by email, just I'll catch this one, is that this list was sort of a list as opposed to a end all, since some of those decisions haven't been made yet around the details. So I was wondering if, to what you were just saying, Will, if that wants to be like members of the community stated very strongly, if like something like that in terms of emphasis, and then changing this including to a such as, so that it's clear that there's, I don't think there was a clear like, this is the must, this is the like to have yet in the conversation. That was my read on it, and I don't know if you all agree. Whereas it more that these are the kinds of things that people were interested in seeing come out. So I'll type that in, and then I'm curious what other people think, and well, if you think that meets the goal that you were stating. Do other folks agree with that kind of change?
Yes. Rachel, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so would this document be the appropriate place? Like, would we also be able to add, well, for one thing, under the construction number 6, I know that the community, you know, they've heard from the community, and I know I feel strongly about using union labor, you know, whenever possible, I guess you could say. I understand there are some challenges to that. But I think it's important to at least mention local hire and union labor in the document in a way that at least signals that, you know, we've had those discussions and we continue to have those discussions. Is that, I don't know if this is the appropriate, maybe this isn't the document, maybe, you know, I just didn't know if, so I'm asking you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal of this document is to capture, my expectation of this document is that this is capturing as much as we can the conversation that's been had in all perspectives. That way, basically we can catch up someone who's a member of the SRA or a member of the ZBA, and to understand sort of what's been going on in the dynamics so far, where there is, you know, general agreement and where there are these things that, you know, are still asks.
Yeah, so there would be that for me. I would think that it's important to put in local hire and you know, for construction, local hire and union union labor. And then also, I don't know if it's in there anywhere about the again, these are my sort of sticking points, that the importance of there being some, I don't know how you can translate this into this document, but the importance of there being some sort of document or some sort of agreement that the open space stays, you know, an open space to the public in perpetuity. I think that's important to highlight because that's really it's a big piece of this. Because as you know, we, you know, through eminent domain, we could have done this ourselves, and we know for sure we could have made a pocket park there for ever and ever. And then lastly would be some sort of indication about the deeding of the C lot or whatever it's called, whatever the designation it has, deeding that piece of land to the city and or the, you know, the community land trust. I know that's a little bit dense and heavy like this one, but I think it's just thinking about this document now and thinking about, like you said, like what we're trying to convey. I think, you know, it'll be helpful for the development team, to be honest with you, at least that, like you said, it catch people up and that the for the ZBA to know that those conversations have been had, and any other body that reads the document.
Yeah, I agree. As that was stated pretty explicitly at one point in earlier meetings, the deeding of that space to the city.
Rachel, my apologies for bringing this up in real time. I should have gotten
No,
this.
this is the point
gotten
of
in
the
writing.
meeting. This is the goal.
I know, but I should have at least sent it over to the group in writing ahead of time. I just been a lot going on.
We did a similar thing with I'll let you all know that we did a similar kind of editing of a document live with the Gilman Square group a few weeks ago, and it was really helpful actually to do the conversation live and make these edits so that everyone can see it as we're going through and voice if there's a change in tone that is needed, and you can all hear from each other about what may or may not be fit. With the open meeting law rules, we can't do like a shared Google Doc in this quite the same way. So this is a really great opportunity for that. So as I'm going to try and type as everyone's going, and just stop me if you think it doesn't quite fit where I'm putting things. But Councilor, what I was thinking in terms of your comments is to put the piece about the park into the section on open space related to the urban renewal plan goals, because that was a goal of the urban renewal plan, and same with the housing lot, so that it fits right in that structure, because that's something that the SRA is going to need to definitely look at.
Okay, yeah, and as long as it signals that the development team has basically verbally agreed to these things, that these discussions have been had, and that my concern all along is that I like the development team and all, and I'm sure they're listening right now, but I want to make sure that these things, I don't want to just kind of like leave it up to trust and then something goes awry. So I'm just curious as how to codify that. If where in the process is that codified? Is it is there somewhere in the process that we would have like a covenant or whatever? I don't think we'd ever want to do a covenant again, like they did. I think it's Maxwell Greens or something, but maybe we do. I don't know. But I'm just again wanting to make sure that those things, at least the open space and the thing. I know that the union labor aspect is a little more challenging, as much as I'd like to see it go 100% union, especially with the affordable housing side of things. But anyway, but at least the indication that those conversations have been had with community members. I know that they've met with the trades, Miriam Walls and Brian from the building trades. So I just, again, that's another thing I just want people to know, that we've made sure to touch on those things.
So what I added for the open space piece is the urban renewal plan recommended that the park space on Soul Street should be deeded over to the city for the development as a park. The CAC has discussed with the development team the importance of protecting that open space in perpetuity in some format. The development team has verbally agreed to protect the open space for the long term, and it is recognized that the legal structure for it is still to be determined.
Great.
And then we'll do the same thing on the affordable housing piece. Is what I was thinking is that fits in, because what the urban renewal plan anticipated is that goes to some form of affordable housing opportunity, whether that's the land trust or one of our affordable housing partners to be developed.
Hey, that leads me to a question. Thinking about, we're talking about quote unquote the development team, but how does this play out in terms of, like, Mark Development will be the sole owner of the land, or are they actually breaking up the parcel to sell to the like is it Beacon? Where does
Beacon Communities.
yeah, where
So
does
they are
Beacon?
here if you want to ask that question directly.
Yeah,
I
if
believe
they're
the
on.
plan is to pass this off. So why don't I bring them up so that they're in a position where they can answer you verbally for these kinds of questions.
Yeah, because I mean, I just want to know like who we're sort of like dealing with. We're dealing with Mark Development, but the piece that's Beacon Communities, I imagine, is just going to be broken off separately. Well, I'll let them
Yeah, so
describe.
so Josh Cohen is here this evening from Beacon Communities, and Robert Korf is here as well from Mark Development, and I've added a few folks from their team: Adam Benjamin, Robert Korf, Josh Cohen, and Damian Chaviano. And folks, if there's anyone else from your team that would be better to answer that question, let me know.
Can you hear me, Rachel?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah. So Councilor Clinton, in regards to the legal structure here and ownership, we're imagining creating a subdivision line that, essentially would go from Broadway down the center of the Muse and out, to Sewell Park in the rear. And Beacon Communities would own the land and buildings on their side of the lot, and we own on ours. And then we would record a reciprocal easement agreement between both sides in perpetuity, which effectively locks in the fact that the property at the ground level will all operate as one. And then there'll be a private management agreement between us and Beacon that frankly we haven't worked out yet in terms of responsibilities of maintenance and whatnot. I'm not sure yet if one party will manage the entire ground plane of the site, so to speak, and charge back the other side, or each side will be responsible for their own side. The other slight nuance in that, seeing as we're talking about legal ownership structure, is that the retail at the ground level of building one, the Beacon building, will be condoed out, and that ownership will fall into Mark Development, such that it effectively Mark Development owns all the retail in their building, the market rate building. And Beacon owns the affordable building minus the retail at the ground level. Does that make sense? At least as described?
Yeah.
And
So
then
the
Robert.
I'm just gonna say, so the public space, when you do this agreement with Beacon Properties, additionally, you'll write up an agreement with, essentially the city or the public around about the accessible space. Is that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that could be incorporated. I hate acting as my own legal counsel, but that seems practical and reasonable.
Okay.
And of course, we'll supply this. It's going to be a recorded reciprocal easement agreement, so yeah, we'll keep the city involved in the logistics of that agreement.
Okay. Thanks.
Give you the opportunity to comment.
That sounds good. Thanks.
And Robert, just so since we're on this separating off of the lot on Sewell, do you mind just confirming that was sort of the intention as well on your end?
Sorry, that was a miss on our part, I guess, that it wasn't in the letter. But yes, absolutely, that's always been the case. I do want to clarify on the open space being public. it's important that we define that open space. We're not talking about the interior courtyards to the individual buildings. It just might make sense to make that clarification.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand that. And I guess I would, my main thing would be the actual pocket park itself. I don't know.
It's sort of like
Sorry, like the space between the buildings.
yeah, it's like a visual, view it as a visual barbell, right? You got the pocket park on Broadway, the one on Sewell, and then the Muse, pedestrian way connects the two. That entire barbell becomes public open space in perpetuity. Is how we view it.
Okay, we're on the same.
Good.
I think the actual legal structure of that will probably come down to coordination with the law department and planning and zoning, and also with flex space and urban forestry. There's a couple of different ways this has gone in other places. Some civic spaces that are privately built do end up in the city's hands, and some continue to stay owned and managed by a private entity, but with a legal sort of clarity that they're always open to the public.
Rachel, it's Adam Dash, the attorney for Mark Development. I just want to say that there is precedent for this on Tough Street, which is a project I worked on where there's a public park that's privately owned as part of the development of the building, but it's managed and run by the private entity, and there's a recorded document, an easement for the public to get on it, and there's a contract with the city. So this has been done before.
And Rachel, I wanted to jump in for those who aren't familiar. POPs, publicly owned private spaces. There's a movement to try to get sort of a better inventory of those, and then also in the city of Somerville, at least the city council level, we're looking at how we can possibly improve sort of the visibility of those, and it was signage, making sure that people understand that these are public spaces, because a lot of times these spaces can scan as private because they are parts of developments. And so that's something the city council is looking to do, is just make it really obvious to the public this is public space regardless of who owns these.
Yeah, and while I may not be a huge fan of POPs myself, I just feel like the reason why this one here lends itself, like to your point, Jake, it's not like I understand things like Maxwell Green being really kind of people not understanding, it feels like there's people going on someone else's property, but with the park on Sewell, I feel like it'll be pretty welcoming and obvious that, but I think with signage, it will, that will certainly be a big part of it. But yeah, I hear you.
So, Councillor, before we move to the next person's comments, I just want to make sure I capture the three things that you mentioned. So we had the piece about clarifying about the park, and that was something that has been discussed. Doing the same with the lot on Sewell Street, and then adding in the additional comments that there's been a discussion around an interest in seeing local hiring and/or union labor used during construction.
Yeah, that's correct. That we've urged the development team to use union labor as much as possible, and local hire.
There's just to put this out there, it's really interesting, and I'm just getting a grip on it myself. There's some interesting new studies about equity and union labor that are really intriguing and making me think. And I can send them your way if you're interested. Basically, the importance of local over union sometimes may may lead to different equity outcomes. There's some new research. It's very interesting. It's very new. And we're just getting a handle on what it might look like in Somerville. But I can definitely put that in here. Is everyone comfortable with that sort of statement that, you know, there's been an interest in this and we'd encourage this to continue exploration?
Is that a question directed to the development team as well?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think I have a problem reciting that, you know, it has been discussed. But I believe, you know, I have made it clear, you know, listen, it's pure economics here. I've been very transparent about it from the beginning. I don't know, you know, without additional public subsidies, you know, how, you know, this project could bear the brunt of having a commitment to union labor. It's just the practicalities of the project's economics, which again, being very transparent, we've been willing to share our sort of inside baseball, letting the city in under the tent, looking at numbers and how we view returns and the marketplace and what's going on with cost escalation. I just want us, you know, we're people pleasers, and to the extent, you know, we could grant every ask, you know, we'd love to do so, but you know, it's also our job not to overpromise and underdeliver. It's only going to lead to bigger problems. So I just want us all to go into this with wide open eyes as it relates to, you know, the union labor impact to the economics.
If I may, Robert, do you anticipate using some union labor on the job, like for example, Local 103 for the electric work?
I mean, we could explore, you know, select trades and see what we can negotiate. But truly, Counselor, at this stage of the game, I'd be very reluctant to make a commitment to that. I can make a commitment to, you know, pursue it in good faith. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, and this is where this equity piece is really interesting research. What was finding is,
Rachel, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, it's sort of contradictory, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, you know, attacking that, you know, on a parallel track with union labor. I'm not sure, as I think you're inferring, that those two approaches necessarily align.
exactly, that's where there's findings out of some research out of Boston that they don't necessarily align in our local market. But it's, again, it's new research. We don't really have a good handle on what that looks like in Somerville specifically. But I just wanted to sort of put that on everyone's radar, that it's something we're starting to read into and understand better about. Is there a differential between going in the union route and meeting diversity goals? Is there anything else from this group here that should be thought about? I don't know if Edith or Matt, any thoughts that you might have?
So to talk a little bit about the construction piece, when we talk to neighbors, a lot of concerns included like flood mitigation, shadow studies, and also like, for example, like making sure that there's like native plants being planted, non-invasives, and then also like black swallowwort and Japanese knotweed being very like prolific in our area, making sure that that doesn't get spread through construction. But like, is that too detailed for this?
That's definitely going to come up. All those details are going to come up in the ZBA process.
Okay.
Wondering how we can sort of sum that up
I
in
know.
this letter.
Sure.
Yeah, like we've heard a variety of concerns around the construction planning, making sure that there's a rodent plan in place, and maybe you can just kind of touch on a high level to convey that we've listened to the concerns of the community, everything from native plantings to rodents to water mitigation. But yeah, I think there's probably a way to just kind of sum that up. I think it's important. I think she's right. It's important to mention in that.
For what it's worth, I
Pretty-
agree with you. I mean, that
Sorry.
seems totally in line with, our goals.
Yeah, because it's going to be a very major disruptive project right in the middle there of Winter Hill. So it's sure there's going to be a lot of anxiety and concerns around traffic planning and construction, construction planning and so on, and road control.
Yeah, I'm assuming we'll be drafting, prior to going into the ZBA, a full-blown construction management plan that, will be reviewed and approved as part of the process.
Edith, what else was there on that list that I missed here? There was some, I feel like there are a couple others that were sort of category wise.
So I'm not sure if you're sharing your screen, but I can't see it.
Oh, it's not working? Okay, let me fix that.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that. I thought it was being shared. One moment. We are somehow show my screen. And hoping it'll tell me which screen it is showing. Is there two? Can you see this now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for telling me that.
All good. I guess the only big thing is the water flooding in our area is pretty bad.
I wonder if this actually wants to be maybe separated from construction period thing. Let me just make this a final comment. That's like, there were a variety of very small but very important neighborhood concerns that we expect that they will get into. Does that look better?
Yeah.
You said native species as well. Ground control, traffic control, water and flooding management. Anything else? Not anything on your end?
I think that pretty much captures what I've been hearing in the community. Just Edith bringing that up is definitely what I'm hearing too, especially about the rodent control. And yeah, overall, just my thoughts on the letter are that it captures kind of what I've been hearing so far from my neighbors. And it's overall, people are welcoming the project. They just want to see it done right, so this does that.
Thanks. Just want to give you I wanted to put in the note from Breck, who couldn't be here this evening. I will just type this into this so we can all look at it on the screen. What he was sort of saying is it worth putting in somewhere about the timeline that this process will go faster than if we go the urban renewal route. I was curious what you all thought about including a statement of that nature.
I didn't quite understand. Could you explain that more?
Sure. So what Breck says is the only question or comment for me is if you think it's worth mentioning the advantageous speed of the contemplated development relative to the longer term eminent domain process. Obviously, the most important attribute of the proposal, this is not the most important attribute of the proposal, but I do think it's an attractive component relative to the alternative approach.
I think it's definitely worth including, in my opinion.
Okay. I'm
Because
tempted to put.
It'll ultimately be the ZBA's decision whether to go that route at the end of the day, correct? So it's something that they should think about, definitely.
I'm gonna recommend we put this up with the rest of the urban renewal plan details because it's tied into like, are we using urban renewal or are we not? All right, this really. Maybe it goes here sort of as a general statement. But like in general, the findings that it meets the 6 objectives. And something to the effect that the CAC discussed that has a speed advantage. The CAC, what about that? The CAC discussed that this proposal has a speed advantage over the longer eminent domain process and that is an attractive component relative to the alternative. Anything else from the group that I may have missed or it's coming to mind as we're talking?
I can't remember exactly who just said it. Maybe it was you, Matt. But just sort of in line with that last message, like you said, basically everyone wants to see it get done and just get it done right. That sort of seems to be the sentiment overall that I've heard. Like, I don't think I've heard any opinions that we should not do this or that the plan overall is a bad idea. It's mostly a matter of let's get it done right, and that comes through in all of these 6 points, and as well as the additional sections after.
Simple and straightforward, do you think? As folks are still processing, I did want to highlight, we did get a note in the questions from an audience member, Mary, who attended last time and wanted to just clarify one of the groups that was suggested last time. We had the name a little bit off, and so I'm going to go ahead and fix that while folks are sort of contemplating if there's any last thoughts. The climate change group, we had gotten the name incorrect.
Rachel?
Yes.
Hi, it's Adam Dash again, attorney for Mark Development. I just wanted to make a correction, I guess, of fact on here, just to make it clear for everybody. And you're actually on the right page. You just scrolled down. And number 1 there, it says that the development team was not interested in incorporating those corner properties into the project. I wouldn't say that's true that we're not interested. I would say they're not for sale and we're not buying them. but to say that we're not interested is probably not. I don't want people to get the impression we're just saying never mind. I think it's more like those two neighboring parcels have two separate owners, and they're not part of the area being purchased by the developer. As such, those neighboring corner parcels are not being included in the proposed development. I understand they're in the urban renewal plan, but we're not buying them. They're not for sale as far as we know. So I just wanted to make that clear so no one was under the impression we just weren't interested at all.
And Adam, while you're on that topic, I saw somewhere there's reference to 2.8 acres. I just want to make sure 2.8 is a reference to the entire urban renewal plan, and that, you know, it's slightly less, about 2.5, a little bit more acres, you know, when you carve out the corner piece, just so there's no confusion.
I think that's a good point, Robert. No, we just want the facts to be correct. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, did you all have some notes that it's worth sharing, or like recommended text
Well,
for that? Or
yeah, I think that number one, I think that sentence that says after learning that that one right there, the city,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I don't think that's probably the right statement. I think it's more like those neighboring parcels, because that's how you called it. Those neighboring parcels have two separate owners, which is true. And they are not part of the area being purchased by the developer, which is true. Because they're owned by different people than who we're buying the rest of the lot from. And you could say, as such, those neighboring corner parcels are not being included in the proposed development. That's why they're not included. You know, as such, those neighboring parcels are not being included in the proposed development. If that's all right with everybody else, I'm just trying to correct the facts here.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave the impression you thought we just didn't care about the corner. So sorry. Yeah.
While we're editing this particular paragraph, just one extremely small thing on the second to last line. It says located at V9 Temple Street, and we can probably just remove the word the there.
thank you. Great catch. Adam, are there any other, I did want to double check with you actually, are there any other sort of factual things that we should be updating that we may have sort of misinterpreted or not quite captured correctly in the previous meeting?
Well, I know Mr. Cullen caught the dates that all the years that were wrong. I'd noticed that. So I appreciate that one. I guess I would ask our team if they had any other, as they're skimming through this, whether they saw anything else that was incorrect.
Yeah. Is Adam Benjamin in the room, Rachel?
Let me make sure he is.
I'm here, Robert and Rachel.
Hi,
Can you
Adam.
guys hear me?
Yes. Have we captured all comments?
I'm scrolling here on the edits we made. So if we want to just sort of go from the top down,
Sure.
the only small notes that I would add here, so beyond the dates, starting at improvement, number one, improve Winter Hills identity as a neighborhood-oriented Main Street commercial district. I would just add the word around for 30 net new jobs. You know, we've really done a full economic feasibility study on, you know, permanent job impact of the development. Small addition there.
And that's a good point, Adam Benjamin's Adam Dash, because we don't have tenants yet and different businesses have different employee counts. So it's almost impossible to know for sure at this stage where, you know, how many employees there will be to a certain number, but we can get a general sense of scale.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And we'll be doing a study as part of the whole process. So that number will evolve.
And I can tell you also, just so that for everyone's benefit, the origin of the 40 net new jobs in the urban renewal plan, that comes out of it's a calculus based on the like jobs per square foot as an average across all, like all retail and all office. So it's a pretty vague calculation that led to the number 40 that you all see.
Yeah, and our square footage might even be different than what the plan contemplated.
Right.
While we're on the topic of retail, so Rachel, if you scroll down a little bit after the list of the 5 categories, which is where my screen cuts off. So sorry if there's more, and that's still in section 1. If you scroll down a little bit to the next page.
Still on the retail topic, though?
Yeah, still on the retail topic. It's just discusses the topic of Bow Market. That our retail strategy, as we discussed, is to hopefully be the next stepping stone for tenants that are in Bow Market who are successful, and that's sort of how we've planned the square footages of the retail spaces, is to be for those who graduated from Bow Market, as opposed to smaller micro retail spaces. So I would just add language that the edit that we have proposed here is from micro size to slightly larger spaces as they outgrow Bow Market, as opposed to trying to be similar to Bow Market.
I think this might need a little bit more to the sentence then. So what I have listening is that the development team stated that they hope to attract
Yeah, here, sorry. Yeah, so I again, I can't see the link for some reason. I'm only seeing the top half of the page on your screen, but so my proposed were to remove after the comma, after Bow Market, remove where independent retailers have the opportunities to rent micro-sized commercial spaces. I would just remove that line and then add as they outgrow Bow Market to the end. Just so that aligns with the current retail square footage spaces that we have designed at the ground level.
Yeah, I think let me see if my screen sharing is having trouble.
Oh, I can see it now. I can see it.
It's better. Yeah, so I think what was happening is that it's the sentence above it is actually describing Bow Market.
Okay.
So I think it needs a sentence that says sort of your response to that is to attract the folks who are.
Exactly. Yeah, however you think the language captures it. Sorry if I cause any confusion there.
Does that feel okay? Is that clear to everyone? I feel like it's a little bit of a clearer sentence. Adam, anything else that?
Oh, that's good. And then we haven't, and well, we talked about DE&I, so I just wanted to add the language of exploring, because all of the bullets you stated are correct. They're all areas of exploration. We just haven't vetted out all of them to the point where we're prepared to commit quite yet, but they are all great avenues for improving DE&I throughout the development process.
I see. Yeah, so I think we were just you're earlier in the process than we captured it.
That's right. As I scroll through here, I think everything else was captured. We discussed the corner parcels as they're under other ownership, and that's all we had on our end.
Okay.
Thank you.
Folks, any further thoughts as we've been making these changes that they've suggested? I do want to leave a chance also for members of the public. If it's all right with folks, I will give them a moment to respond, to give us feedback. And we see if there's anything else to add there, and then we can keep going. So for anyone else in the audience, please feel free to raise your hand and we will call on you. And also to put something in the questions, and we can, if you want to type something in as well. And so I just want to highlight for Mary, I hope I got that correctly. I copied and pasted from your question around the name of the committee. So I'll take a look and see if we have any hands up. I'm seeing none at the moment. Anything else from the members of this group? Would it be helpful if we sort of go through like from top to bottom slowly, just as a scan to finalize? Okay. So actually one that came from our team is what we were recommending is actually to send this on to, and this is going to be mostly relevant to the Market Development and Beacon Communities team specifically, but to send this also on to DHCD. That is the state division that is going to be reviewing the affordable housing component of this. And just so that way, what happens with the DHCD process when they're reviewing projects that go through the 40B process, which is how this process is going to go, they have a public comment period. And so what we'd like to be able to do is send your comments, this comment letter on as part of the public comment, because it does capture so much of the conversation that's been happening. And I will find a specific, I don't know who exactly it needs to go to, but we will find the right name of a person who receives this. Okay, and then so scrolling through, we caught that the year needed to be changed for the meetings, 2022. I was going to leave the 2.8 acres because that is a description of the full urban renewal plan. And I'm not seeing in here a spot where it says to the size of the project area, but I can put that, we can add that in for the market development team if you think that's important further down, just to clarify total area.
Yeah, it certainly couldn't hurt, Rachel.
Sure. We updated this year to 2021 as well. We added in a statement about the speed advantage that this has over the eminent domain process, and that the general community sentiment has been that this is a good plan. Just want to see it done right. Around 30 net new jobs. Clarify that the interest was in sort of something like the market where there's sort of a variety of independent shops, and that the aim of the team has been that they'll sort of attract business that are sort of outgrowing the micro spaces and into still small spaces, but bigger than micro. We added in the clarification that the courtyards are planned to be private to residents. We added in about the importance of the park space on Sewell Street and finding a long-term solution to keeping it open to the public. We added in about the lot on Sewell Street, same situation. We clarified that teams exploring all these strategies. They haven't made specific commitments yet in any of those areas.
Rachel, could you scroll back up to the Sewell Street lot?
Sure.
Okay. I wanted to make sure you distinguished between the two lots on Sewell, so there was no confusion. I think you got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yes, anyone pause me if you see anything that needs further edits. And then we have here clarification from Mark Development Team about what, that the separate ownership is really why it's not being pursued. Stronger statement about the interest in seeing sustainable goals being met. Clarification about which committee we're talking about, that be interested in hosting them. Added to this the construction detail around hiring locally or union labor, and continuing to explore that. And added in at the end that there's a variety of details that people really want to see discussed when it comes to the ZBA process, including knotweed, an invasive species, selection of native species, rodent control, traffic control, stormwater, and flooding management. Anything else that we may have missed? Okay. So with that, I do want to confirm with the members of the committee, do you all feel comfortable with publishing this with the edits we talked about tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
See yeses from Will and Matt and Edith and Jake. Councilor Wilson, just double checking if this is comfortable to you. Oh, sorry, Councilor Flanagan. Councilor Wilson, I could see you. Sorry about that. Got you confused there for a moment. Councilor Flanagan may have stepped away for a moment.
I'm back. I just
Councilor
lost my
Flanagan might be
audio.
on his way up to City Hall. Oh no, I hear him.
I am on my way up, but I just lost my audio for a minute. What happened?
Are you comfortable with the edits, with publishing this with the edits discussed tonight?
Yes.
Okay. So then what we will do is I will accept all of these edits. I'm going to hit save now, and the autosave is on. Make all of these edits and convert this to PDF, and I will send it around to everyone in the group. And what we'll do is then send it on to the SRA, the ZBA, and their partner, the DHCD. The DHCD will wait until they give us the specific name of where it's going, but we'll put them on put the agency on this list for now, and then we'll get it into the process, along with all the other public comments. I think this is going to be really helpful to get the SRA and the ZBA conversation started, just because you guys have captured so much of the community conversation so far, including, and thank you, Edith, for bringing all those smaller details to the forefront, because those are things that they're going to want to get into in depth as they go through detailed plans.
So Rachel, could I take a brief moment just to thank all the committee members for the process. I thought it was a very healthy back and forth, and a lot of good things came out of it. So yeah, thank you all for putting the time in. And, you should be commended. We get paid for this. You do this for the community. So yeah, again, thank you all. And this isn't the end of our communications, Rachel. Are we going to be continuing these meetings going forward, or is this?
So that's what I wanted to bring up, is that where we were planning for this is that because the ZBA, what we'd love to see is all the comments in this next few months go directly to the ZBA, because they're the ones who are going to make these hard decisions and have all these really detailed conversations. That what we'd love to see is for members of the committee, and also for anyone in your networks who might have additional specific thoughts, like Edith and Matt, like you were saying about your neighbors, directing them to the ZBA process instead of this one for the next few months. But that once the ZBA process wraps up, we regroup again here all together to get into some of those sort of continuing conversations around communicating out to the neighborhood during construction, and just making those other decisions that this group needs to make around what happens to the future of the corner.
Oh, good. So we'll be friends for a long time. Sounds like it kind of converts to a liaison committee, during the construction process, which is great.
Exactly. So the role of the committee is to be that liaison throughout the process, but also your very specific role is to write this kind of letter to the SRA and advise them as they make their decisions. So this is exactly, this was sort of a big milestone for the group. So thank you all so much for the details and reading through this and spending the time tonight on it. This is one of those big pieces.
And, from this point forward, I believe you all have my contact info. If not, just look at our website. You get my cell number, and anything comes up subsequent to this, just feel free to reach out. Always like engaging and talking. Makes for a better project. Are we free to go, Rachel?
I think so. Anything else from the members of the committee, or any questions from you all about the sort of timeline to regroup?
Yeah, Rachel, will you be sending out a notice of all the ZBA meetings?
Yes, I will. I need to talk with my colleague Emily, who's going to be leading the communications on that. All of those meetings are going to be on the city website. So if you look at the city website, there will be notices there, and I will work with her and see about putting them up on the Summer Voice page as well, so that folks who are following the project can continue to find that. I think the estimated timeline that when we would probably regroup is probably like March-ish. The ZBA process will be detailed and take a little bit, but probably February or March, thinking about regrouping here. And we may need to do some recruitment. We've lost a few folks as well, so we'll have some new blood as well joining probably at that time.
So I was just going to say, Rachel, into Mark Development, actually, I view the role of this group as, like, through the whole process as like a watchdog group. I know things change with projects midstream, and I'd like for all of us to be kept abreast of any changes. And if anything starts going sideways from all the things we discussed. The other thing I was going to say, Rachel, to you is when we've had all the meetings through the years, like through anything Star Market related, when people sign up for those emails, like what happens with those lists? Because I don't seem to get any emails regarding like 299 Broadway. And again, like this is just through the years, there's been multiple times where they say, like, if you want updates on what's happening up there. And the reason I say this, because like I had heard a couple weeks ago, I know that the project was before the urban design review group, and like I'm just curious, like, is that something? Can those meetings? Can anything related to this be emailed out? Like, is that something that's possible?
Yeah, that's a good question. I want to make note of that. So I think I'm going to stop sharing at this point. So we have a list of at least 100 folks who are following on Summer Voice, and I think that is where all of those lists have been migrated into. But I think what's happening is I don't think we'll update Summer Voice the dates, but I don't know that we get a ping when the website gets updated. But I will talk with Emily and Nick on our team and see if we can start doing sort of more e-blast to folks about the key dates that are coming up.
Okay, so you're saying when the website is updated, though, people that are on that listserv, they get an email that says it's been an update, or?
That's what I don't know. I have to double check with our web person to see if that was my expectation was what was supposed to be happening, but it may not be actually working that way. And if that's the case, then we need to do more. We can do more to put out sort of announcements about like these are the dates to anticipate if you want to participate and follow up and know what's happening.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, that's a good thought. That'll help drive, because again, one of the other goals of the CAC is to get more folks involved in following this and sharing their opinions. So that's a super helpful perspective, because we can get that out there and make sure folks know that this letter is done, but that doesn't mean the process is done. It just means that the venue is shifted to the ZBA for right now. And then we'll come back to this group for all of those kind of conversations around project changes and construction period topics. Excellent. Anything else before we break for winter, I guess?
Yeah, Rachel, can you just send around, as far as the new blood goes, like which categories we're trying to satisfy? I definitely feel like I can get a teenager on here, like get them to apply or whatnot. But I know we're still looking for a youth, right?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember who's sitting in the youth alternate seat.
Well, anyway, yeah, if we just like touch on that at some point and update on which categories we're trying to satisfy, so we can help with the outreach. And the last thing I was going to say was, so the Ward 4 Resistat meeting has been set for October 13th. It's a Wednesday. So I don't know if the CAC wants to, have a presence or say anything at that meeting or whatnot, but just that's an opportunity to engage, with the community.
Oh, that's a great one. So yeah, Resistat is going to be really interesting. I think I don't know what the theme is going to, if you know, Counselor, what the theme is going to be, but the Resistat meetings are basically opportunities for sort of broader conversations with city staff. I don't know what may be happening in the neighborhood. I would expect that this is going to be on the list as a project, but other things as well, like the Healy School schoolyard being worked on, things like that as well.
Yeah, I imagine you'll be there to give an update, Rachel, on this. That's why I thought maybe one of the community members might also want to. But yeah, well, I guess we could talk to staff and see about that. But even just for the folks in the meeting now, just so that they know that's happening. The Resistat meetings have been set, so you'll be getting a notification about that soon.
Awesome. Great, so we'll work on outreach and keeping you all on the loop so you can help with recruitment. I do want to double check in with folks who, there's a couple people who were in the process of moving, and so I wanted to just I'll check in with them and we'll see if they, during this break, if things change, and we'll figure out what seats are open. And then for those of you who are in alternate seats, I think we can look at also if you want to move into one of the other seats that might fit a little bit better as other folks have moved on. We can look at that as well. So more to come.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for your participation so far. This has been fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you later.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye all. Have a great night.
Thanks all.